What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another match preview. It's time to put that Manchester United game in the distant memory and concentrate on this very important game we have. 4:30 kickoff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham against Newcastle, which is going to be an extremely tough game. We've seen Newcastle in very good form. I mean, they've been playing well all season. They weren't getting the results at the beginning of the season, but they really are now. If you look at the form between the two sides, I mean, they've got no losses in their last 5, 2 draws, 3 wins. Spurs, on the other hand, coming into it with 2 losses and 3 wins. How are you assessing Newcastle right now?
They're playing really well. They're a really tough team to play against. Obviously, off the back of their form last season as well, for the last few months of the season, they've really taken that into this season, I feel. Only lost 1 game so far this season. Obviously, they've suffered with quite a few draws, but they're clearly very, very difficult to beat. Eddie Howe's got them defensively on point. Best defence in the Premier League right now. Attack and going forward as well, they have quality. It might not be, the quality that we have, but Bruno Guimaraes has come into his own since he's come back from his injury. Callum Wilson knows where the goal is for sure. Miguel Almiron has started to score goals as well. So not only are they a solid unit defensively, but going forward they can trouble you as well. So I really do envisage a very, very difficult game on Sunday, and it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. And Newcastle, the way they set up, it can easily lead to a very frustrating 90 minutes for us.
Absolutely. And last season, the back end of last season, again, they were playing really well. I think they've actually stepped up a notch this season. But when you're looking at the back end of last season, and we did play them towards in April time, beat them 5-1. It was a very hard first half, but second half we completely swept them away. How different do you anticipate this game being to maybe that game in the early stages of April?
Well, for starters, Bruno wasn't playing, so automatically that gives their midfield a completely difference in quality. So that's going to be a lot more difficult to deal with. Chris Wood was playing every game up front at that time. I don't know if he started a game yet this season. Chris Wood, it's either been Isaac or Wilson.
Once when they were both injured, but yeah.
So that's also automatically going to mean a much more difficult front line to deal with as well. Defensively, it's very similar, although Botman has definitely taken their defence to a much better place. So I really believe it's going to be a much more difficult game, especially I don't see us scoring 5 goals, that's for sure. And I think if we go 1-0 down in this game, it's going to be a lot more detrimental than it would have been last season. I think we're able to turn it around. Obviously, we're not going to have Kulusevski either, who made a big difference last season with his ability in the final third. And also, we were playing much more free-flowing football at that time. We were able to play a lot better one-touch football. We had a lot more controlling games. Even in the first half last time, even though we were 1-0 down, it wasn't exactly like Newcastle were amazing. Like we had moments. It was a very even game. They just got a free kick, if I remember. They scored, and then I think we equalised before the break.
Yeah,
it was 1 or half time. So that was a big moment as well. So this time around, Newcastle are in great form. They got better players. They got probably more confidence. So I think it's going to be a very, very difficult game. I think it will be a very different game to it was last season.
When you're looking at the head-to-head between Spurs and Newcastle, last 5 games, haven't lost against them in the last 5 games, albeit before then we have had a couple of losses, 2 draws, 3 wins. Can you read too much into this head-to-head, because they're a much changed outfit now, aren't they?
You can't read anything into head-to-head, because before the last game it was Steve Bruce. Yeah. So I think the head-to-head is... there's nothing really you can take from it. I know we beat them 5-1 last season. That was under Eddie Howe, but there are a lot of changes to both teams in the lineups, in the 11s, and then especially how Newcastle are playing. So I think I wouldn't even take a draw for granted in this game with the quality Newcastle. The way Eddie Howe's got them playing, it's going to be very difficult, really difficult. And you saw how we struggled against Man United, albeit Ronaldo was starting when Newcastle played, but they were able to stifle them, and they got a 0-0 draw, and comfortable 0-0 draw. They could even won the game, whereas we completely got battered. So that goes to show how they're playing at the moment.
Just goes to show when you're looking at the opposition predicted lineup, they're going to go for a 4-3-3 as they've usually deployed this season. Players at the back, I mean, Trippier's having an outstanding season. Yeah. Did we miss a trick there? Not bringing him back?
We should probably never sold him.
Yeah,
let's be honest. That's the reality. I know it's easy to say in hindsight because of
we all wanted him gone.
Yeah, at the time we all wanted him gone, but let's be honest. he would be far and away our best right back right now. And since we've let him go, we've had Aurier, we've had Doherty and Emerson. Don't think anyone else. And so obviously his level's above them. Still starting for England. He's probably going to be starting at the World Cup. So for sure, that's one you probably put down as an error. And I think in our system right now, he'd be brilliant in a three, especially with a back three. You have that protection. And it's funny enough, I was looking at just like how Newcastle set up like average position wise, and he's pretty much like a wing back. He pretty much gets really far forward, and Dan Burn actually tucks in, and it's almost like a back three when they're on the ball, and Trippier goes forward.
That Jose used to play, basically.
Kind of, yeah. So he pretty much does the wing back role for Newcastle, and he does it to amazing. Not only that, he has the set pieces to come with it. Obviously, the corners, free kicks, he gets them on the money so often. We all know his crossing ability was never in question at Tottenham. It was always on his defensive ability, and I think that's improved a lot. Clearly, look how they're defending Newcastle with him in the team.
Yeah. I mean, under Simeone, I think it must have improved a lot, because I know they spoke very highly about his defensive work, maybe towards the end of his career there as well.
Yeah, and it's not just that. I think he complained that he was playing with an injury for his last year at Tottenham. That's where we had the big complaints. I don't think we had massive complaints up until that last year, where he was pretty much really poor for a whole year. And he said he was complaining about an injury, but obviously Spurs thought it would be better to move him on. But I would love him back right now. I mean, look, he's now 31 maybe, so maybe I wouldn't want him back now, but maybe we should definitely never sold him.
Could have had him back now for this season.
He's definitely better than anyone we have now, for sure, and he's been brilliant for Newcastle. Yeah. Brilliant signing.
I completely agree. The other players in the defence, I mean, Dan Burn going to be filling in at left back. Botman has been brilliant, and Shah's also had a really strong start to the season. And obviously Nick Pope. I mean, what a great signing he was for that money, 12 million or something like that. Yeah, even cheaper, I think it was.
Their back line has been in great form, and it's I wouldn't say it's no surprise that they're in the best defence in the league at the moment, but they're playing with really good structure defensively, and they're really difficult to break down. Botman is a bit of a physical specimen. He's so tall. He's so strong in the air as well. He's definitely not going to be bullied. His pace is a question. That's something Son should watch out for. But anything aerially coming towards him, it's going to be difficult. Fabian Schär, he's always been good for Newcastle. The problem he's always had at Newcastle is injuries. He's never been able to stay fit, but now he's been able to stay fit for an extended period of time. He's starting to show his quality. He's always been very good on the ball, Fabian Schär, and he's showing at the moment what he can do. Dan Burn's an interesting one, because he's obviously not a natural left-back. He's played there a few times for Brighton, obviously much more suited at centre-back, but he's doing a really good job there. Obviously not asked to go too far forward, just basically stick to your position, tuck into a back three when out of possession, and he's obviously also very tall, and he's doing a great job. He can be very difficult to beat. Obviously pace wise he can be got at, but defensively, like physically, he's definitely someone that is going to be very, very difficult to get the better of.
And obviously Joe Linton is going to be a massive miss for them in the middle of the park. I think he's been very key to what they've done under Eddie Howe so far. When you're looking at that middle three of Guimaraes, Willock and Longstaff, I mean, they played Longstaff, Guimaraes and Joe Linton last weekend, so I just swapped out Willock for Joe Linton. Do you think that's a midfield three that R3 can look to dominate?
Yeah, I think we just got to make sure Guimaraes isn't getting too much time on the ball, or isn't allowing him to dictate the game, and doing what maybe Bruno did against for Man United, finding those pockets of space and making it difficult for us. We've got to shackle him. If we shackle him, I think Longstaff and Willock, I don't know defensively Longstaff is decent, but quality-wise on the ball, Willock had that little run, didn't he, when he just signed for Newcastle? He had scored like 6 or 7 games in a row. Hasn't quite been as good since signing permanently. Kind of maybe he was playing overperforming, and he's kind of reverted to type, really, to what he really is, which is probably an average Premier League player. And I think definitely, obviously he's a former Arsenal player, so I'm sure he'll be motivated to play well against us, and physically,
a nice little reception from the home crowd as well.
I'm sure he will. And look, physically, he could be quite quick, but definitely he's not one I'm majorly worried about from a containing point of view. It's obviously Bruno Guimaraes. If we can contain him, I do believe Bentancur and Højbjerg going forward can get a lot more joy out of Longstaff and Bruno and Willock than they did against Fred and Casemiro. I believe going forward they should get more joy out of them.
Actually, Willock actually scored a winner against us a couple of years back.
Equaliser.
Equaliser. Was it 1-1 that game?
I believe it was 2-2.
2-2. So,
Under Mourinho.
Yeah, exactly. At St James's Park.
That was in that run. He was going for that run.
Yeah.
He scored 7 goals in a row.
Exactly. But the two that we've looked out into ones to watch for Newcastle, Guimaraes just missed out, but we've gone for Almiron and Callum Wilson. Almiron is having a sensational season. I mean, where has this form come from?
Oh yeah, I don't know. Before early in the season, he was like, he's got 4 goals there. He scored like a couple, tap-ins and stuff. You're thinking, okay, he's got a couple, but he's still not that good of a player. But then I saw yesterday, midweek, he put in an absolute peach of a goal. Left-footed, outside the box, right, dipping into the top corner. Also scored a brilliant volley. I think it was against Fulham, over the keeper as well. He's starting to add real quality to his play as well. He's always been a hard worker, Almiron. We all know that. That's never been in question. He's always put blood, sweat and tears into his performances, but he hasn't really had the quality in his decision-making and maybe his goal-scoring ability. But clearly he has that in him in his left foot, and he's starting to score some absolute peaches. And if he can marry that with his work rate, maybe they do have a really good player on their hands in Miko Almiron. And maybe he's proving a few people wrong, and especially Jack Grealish.
Yeah, maybe. Eddie Howe seems to have a knack of doing this with players.
He's actually got 5
wingers.
goals, not 4 goals. It's
5 goals. But I think Eddie Howe has a bit of a knack of doing this. Remember in Bournemouth, I know he's got these players now at Newcastle, but Matt Ritchie was on unbelievable form. Callum Wilson was unbelievable form for a Bournemouth side.
Fraser was good under Howe.
Ryan Fraser as well. all these players. Sorry, not Matt Ritchie. I was thinking about Fraser.
Matt Ritchie was also good under.
So all three of them were, they were getting goals and assists consistently, weren't they? Those players, they were like an FPL player's dream in those days. Cheap players and getting a lot of returns, and now he's doing the same with Almiron.
Yeah, so look, Eddie Howe clearly knows what to do with these players. Look, I know Joe Linton's not going to play, but look what he did with him. I mean, he was a laughing stock before Eddie Howe came.
I do think Joe Linton's good form started before Eddie Howe came in, though, because Steve Bruce was the one that moved him to midfield, and he actually started performing under Steve Bruce there.
He was okay. I think Eddie Howe was where he really became a really good midfielder. I think he did. I think you're right. Bruce did move him there, but whether or not his good form started, before Howe came, he was a laughing stock. That's the truth. And I think he's really found. He's clearly got a knack of finding people's right positions and getting the best out of them. And I think he's done a brilliant job at Newcastle since he's come in, and the way he's turned that team around. And I think you're absolutely right. I think Callum Wilson as well, he was one of the ones to watch. We all know Wilson, the big problem with him is just keeping him fit. He's always had injury problems. Even this season, he scored opening day of the season, then got injured. But again, it was when he's on the pitch, he gets goals. That's what he does, and he's always done it in the Premier League. And he's going to be a big worry on Sunday, because he's quick, he's strong. Eric Dyer, that's things Eric Dyer tends to struggle against, and he's a good finisher as well in and around the penalty area. So it's gonna be very difficult to keep him quiet. But we're gonna have to make sure we do that if we're gonna get all 3 points on Sunday.
Obviously we're looking at a 3-5-2 formation with Kulusevski being out, Richarlison being out. So the front line is a bit decimated. He did say at the press conference he doesn't think Lucas Moura is ready to start either. So that makes the 3-5-2 formation pretty straightforward, to be honest. He
said, Conte, in his press conference, he said, luckily Son and Kane are still fit, otherwise he's going to have to get his boots on.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Which is that disrespectful to Brian Hill? He didn't mention Hill at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. It's a weird one, because a few weeks ago he says how much he trusts him. Now he's not even mentioning him, so I don't know.
He said he's going to come on before Brian Hill this time.
But, with us going with the 3-5-2 formation, how do we win this game? Where's this game going to be won and lost?
It's difficult, man. I would have to say I think the biggest way I can see is in the middle. I think that's where we struggled mostly against Man United. If we can get that right, if we can get Højbjerg and Bentancur getting forward and being effective offensively, I think that's a big place where we can win the game. I think making sure that Kane and Son aren't so isolated like they were against Man United, that's going to be the key to making sure that we're actually hurting Newcastle as opposed to just defending and having no outball. I think against Man United, we looked at our best in the early exchanges when the midfielders were getting involved offensively and they were connecting the front players and getting involved with the wide players as well. When that stopped happening, we stopped looking effective and it was very easy to pin us back. We have to make sure that doesn't happen against Newcastle. I also think that as much as their forward players are good, Almiron and Wilson are playing well. I think Jacob Murphy is really average, and I think if we can keep their wide players quiet, stop the service to Wilson, and dominate the midfield, then I think we should be able to hurt them going forward the other way with the quality of Kane and Son, and hopefully getting the wing backs forward as well. The only problem is with the two up top instead of the three, with the physical dominance of Burn, Botman, and Shah, I can see it being a struggle to really hold the ball up and making sure that we're sustaining attacks. I think it's going to have to be, again, getting out wide and making sure we're effective in the wide areas. But I think
that's why he doesn't think that Bryan Hill should play at all in this game, because of how physical their defence is. Because if Bryan Hill plays, you're literally Dan Burn. All he needs to do is go.
Yeah,
he's going to get knocked over.
Yeah, so true, and that's a big problem with Hill. He's just so lightweight; he's too easy to get muscled off the ball. So I do see him not getting much joy out of the defenders. So I think the 3-5-2. I honestly don't think it's perfect for us in this game, but I think we're going to have to play it. I think that's going to have to be the formation we go with, and I think we need the midfielders to be much better than they were on Wednesday night, and if we can get the better of their midfield, that could be the key.
If Lucas Moura was fit and he was ready to start the game, would you go for 3-4-3 with him on the right?
Yeah, I think I would. Because I think with the pace that Son and Lucas could stretch the Newcastle back four with, I don't think, as much as Newcastle back four are good, they're not the paciest. They're very physical and strong, but they're not the quickest. So I really think Lucas and Son out wide in the more wide areas could get some joy there and could hurt Newcastle. And then I would hope that Højbjerg, Bentancur could deal with Newcastle's middle three, even though they would be outnumbered. I think Longstaff and Willock aren't that great, so I think they could deal with them as much as Bruno might get some joy. So I actually think 3-4-3 in an ideal world might be better for us.
Interesting.
And that's what we played last season. We did very well there in that formation.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. It's going to be a very difficult game against informed Newcastle side with their tails up at the moment. Spurs on the back of a bad defeat at Old Trafford and a very bad performance. We need to bounce back. We need to be on our proper A game if we're going to get anything from this game.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility going into this game with 7 points behind Arsenal.
Yeah,
and that could add a bit of pressure as well. You don't want to get too far away from them, because if we don't get a result, all of a sudden it's 7 points plus a game in hand, or 6 points plus a game in hand, and then you're starting to lose a bit of distance.
Yeah, but even though it's like very early stages of the season still,
I think it is. It's early, but you don't want that gap to get much bigger.
If you go 7 points behind Arsenal and then you come back after the break and they lose one and we win one, that's already back to 4 points with so much football left to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the way they're playing, honestly, that it's not just 7 points with a game in hand. You're at risk of that growing. You know what I mean? If we don't get a result, if we don't beat Newcastle, you're at risk of confidence dropping after a really poor performance against Man United, and then all of a sudden you're at risk of losing a bit of momentum. And with injuries coming in, it's hard to change it, because Richarlison and Kulusevski are out. All of a sudden you're losing that spark up front if it's not working with the 3-5-2, and then you're in a bit of trouble. So we really need to make sure we get the result on Sunday. I think it's super important.
I'm not having it. Finishing below Arsenal ain't even coming into my mind right now, even with the start they've had. I know, look, 9 wins in 10 games, absolutely impressive, but it's a long season. It's a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So we'll see how we go. But I'm backing the boys to get 3 points anyway. You said 1-0, right?
1-0.
Yeah, I'm going 2-1 to Spurs. I think Newcastle will find a goal from somewhere, but you got to back the boys to win, especially at home. Our home form has been so good. so good. Let's just hope we don't come unstuck here, because it's a very big possibility.
Mhm.
It really is.
Look, they've drawn home to Man City, where they were 3-1 up. They drew 0-0 away United. They lost 2-1 to Liverpool when they were 1-0 up, and they scored in the 98th minute. So there is not going to be easy by any stretch of
all
imagination.
three of those games, they deserved more out. They deserved more out of that Liverpool game. They deserved more out of the United game, and they deserved more out of that Man City game too.
So there's nothing to suggest they can't come to Spurs and really give us a good game.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so that's our predictions. That's our match preview. Let's get into BetMate as well, the really fun FPL gaming app where you can take us on and many other Spurs and football fans across the globe, really. Really good game to play. You pick a 7-a-side team, and it's basically the same rules as FPL, but you get rewarded for defensive actions as well. So you get rewarded for interceptions and tackles as well, which is really interesting. I've been enjoying this game all season so far. Won a bit of money. Sims won a bit of money. So come and take us on, see if you can beat us. Let's go through our teams so you can pick. 7-a-side. Let's start off with my team. I've got Hugo Lloris in goal. Hopefully he can make a few saves and hopefully keep a clean sheet, but I'm not counting my money on that one. In defence, I've gone for Kieran Trippier and Cuti Romero. Romero is always full of tackles and interceptions, and after a poor display, hope he comes out firing for this one. Trippier is an interesting one. He's full of tackles and interceptions, but he can also easily grab an assist or even a goal, to be honest, from a set piece. In midfield, I've gone for Bruno Guimaraes. He's going to be the engine in their midfield, and I've gone for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg as captain, who's been an absolute monster on BetMate so far this season with all his tackles and interceptions, and he's also got 6 goal contributions in his last 6 home games, I believe. So hopefully he can carry that on, and I've gone for Sonny and Kane up top, with Kane as my vice captain.
And I've gone for Nick Pope in goal. I'm thinking he's probably going to have a busy afternoon. I'm hoping he will, making a few saves. In defence, I've got Trippier, who's obviously great at set pieces, and he's been very good for Newcastle this season. Ryan Sessegnon, I think, is coming into the back line for Spurs, and hopefully he gets a bit of licence to go forward. So I've got him in my defence. Midfield, Bruno Guimaraes and Rodrigo Bentancur, who I think in this formation is a bit more licensed to get forward as well. So I think he could be one that maybe could get an assist in this game, and obviously he does loads of tackles and interceptions as well. And up front, I've also got Kane and Son, with Kane as my captain. I'm hoping. Obviously, he didn't score on Wednesday night, but he was in good form before that, and he's going to be very important if we're going to take anything from this game. So I've gone for those two up front.
All right, so if you want to join, it is £5 to enter, and you can win a share of £750 this week. Absolute monstrous money. So if you want to join, the link is in the description below, and if you want to get a free £5 to play with, all you have to do for new users is use the code WATTV5 on sign up. So come and join us. It's going to be a really fun weekend, and we'll see you all very soon. Thank you everyone for joining us today for our match preview. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always,
Come on you Spurs.